Welcome, everyone. I am so excited for this talk in this breakout room with my friend Delia. We are discussing today, let me get the title right, Unschooling Every Family, Embracing Neurodivergent and Disabled Learners. My name is Karima Akila, and I am here to help facilitate this conversation, but I believe that parents are here today with their questions and their experiences, and then Delia is going to share with us the work that she does in this arena of neurodivergent and disabled children. So without further ado, because I'm here with pen and paper to take notes for myself and my children, Delia, please introduce yourself and then carry on.
Hello, everyone. So I'm an admin of a Facebook group called with the same name, Unschooling Every Family, Embracing Neurodivergent and Disabled Learners. It's a mouthful, but it has a lot of good search words. And I've been admin since about 2013. And I'm better at like answering direct questions on specific topics than making like the general TED Talk. So I'll kind of keep it short. But I was just telling Karima, when you come into our group, people come in at every stage of their journey. They're just pulling their kids out of school. School has failed them. They're being abused at school. We get those membership answers every week. So they're just brand new to unschooling. I don't know what to do. How do I do this? Then you have people who've been unschooling for a long time and they say, oh, my child was just diagnosed with autism. What do I do now? So that's like an example of how different people are at different points of their journey. So what we try to do is we try to figure out what people are needing in that moment, and then direct them, kind of like you walk into a library and you say, oh, I need a book on, such and such. So sorry, that threw me a little bit. I'm sorry, the screen, you just disappeared, so I'm a little distracted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm neurodivergent. It's okay. It's my brain.
I'm so sorry. I'm right
okay.
here. You keep on going, and I'm right here.
Okay. So anyway, one thing I just wanted to say in general is that it's really important to me personally that I don't turn unschooling or whatever the ideology is into like a totalistic gatekeeping type of ideology, like you're in and you're out, you're an unschooler and you're not. So we try really hard not to do that. But at the same time, in our group, we have a consensus of a very narrow definition of unschooling. And we try to stick to that because we don't want newbies to think that it's not possible. So we kind of distinguish between choosing what you need for your family and not being able to. So that's two different. Like if I want to be an eclectic homeschooler, I want to unschool most of the time, but do a few math worksheets, and I'm choosing to do that. We're fine with that, except we want to stay on topic for unschooling, just so other people who are just starting know that you don't have to do math worksheets. So that's just an example of what happens every day in the group. Okay, so I can answer questions.
Awesome. Well, let me start off and then we'll go to the ones in the chat. So, Delia, in your Facebook group, you have families that have children that have varying different abilities, correct? And
Yes.
so, what is the first step? So let's say you're a mama and you suspect that your child has is somewhere on the neurodivergent spectrum, and you want to unschool. So you want to give them the choice, right? What is the first step? What is the first thing that a parent should consider doing?
So what we recommend is that you take a long time to just deschool or just teach yourself things and don't worry. If you have like a pressing problem, you can post and say, well, my kid's, having a meltdown and in our group, people will come and crowdsource. So you'll get adult autistics who could tell you, I did that as a kid, and this is the best way to handle that particular situation. We have a lot of leaders in our group who have lived experience and have a lot to teach us. So it's really just take a deep breath, tell us where you're at, and then we'll try to guide you over the bridge. So we have like can I share a screen for a second?
I believe so. I think maybe, hold on.
Oh, no. Okay, that's okay. It's okay. It's just a little picture. But so so yeah, and like I said to you before, diagnosis is a privilege that not everyone has. So self-diagnosis is legitimate. And also our autistic leaders have taught us that autism is not a disease that needs to be cured. So we take that that position, and that's part of the neurodiversity movement. There are comorbidities underneath that need support and sometimes treatment, lots of different things, epilepsy, but autism itself, we believe is a neurotype. So we try to get away from the pathologizing model. And we realize that a lot of the reasons why people are pathologized is because they don't fit into school, because you don't fit in, you don't fit into society, you're marginalized. And so unschooling gives you the freedom to say, I can form the environment for my child and my child's disabilities. I can work on their strengths, not their weaknesses. So school just hammers and hammers away on the weaknesses, and then you have the emotional cost of that, which is poor self-esteem, especially with dyslexia. People with dyslexia are so neglected in general.
So let's take
So
you want to take
okay,
Mary Ellen's question? I'll read it for you.
sure.
Mary Ellen says, Hey Delia, I'm super excited to hear about neurodiverse learners. My son is a suspected 2E kiddo, and I'm trying to figure out the best supports for him. Can you first, either you or Mary Ellen, explain what 2E means?
Yeah, sure. 2E is twice exceptional. So a kid who is gifted or has like very creative thinker and compared to where they would be like in typical school, like ahead in particular subjects, along with probable some kind of learning disability or learning difference that makes things difficult. And so I guess our particular question right now is like, should we get some kind of diagnosis or to actually know like what's up? But we just see so much like conflict for him and in everyday things. And he's pretty little, but our unschooling style from the fall was like not at all a fit for him because he needs more structure. And so right now he ended up at a charter school, but we're not sure how long that will be a good fit either. And so we're trying to figure out like what is a good fit for him, and yeah, just like how to support him.
Yeah, so that's a great definition of 2E, twice exceptional. And that's measurable. So, you could have an IQ test. So my son has a 160 math concepts IQ with a 70 processing speed, which is, if you look at a bell curve, they say 68% of the people are in the middle, and then the outliers are the other people. And then it depends on how many standard deviations you get away from the norm, is how far you are away from the norm. And of course, IQ test is just a really two-dimensional test of someone, even though it's normalized. It's kind of like taking a slice of something that's 3D and looking at it 2D. It doesn't give you the whole picture, so, but for twice exceptional kids, they're, the way, like, this is just my anecdotal experience, is that they have a hard time getting into the zone. So the zone is when something is not too challenging and challenging enough. And, it's hard for them because they have more frustration and tolerance. They need lots of stimulation, but then they get overwhelmed with certain things, maybe executive functioning. If the disability is dyslexia, then they'll get frustrated because they can't read. My kids have convergence insufficiency, which is a hard time reading at the book level. So it really, again, it all goes back to kind of, how can I know my child better and how can I meet their needs? So one thing we've been talking about in the group is how giftedness isn't really a badge of honor. It's not tied to accomplishments or productivity. That is like the capitalistic view of giftedness, like, oh, well, you're gifted, so you should be able to contribute to society, or, or you should do great things. And meanwhile, the child is not interested in that, or doesn't want someone else to define them that way. So what we try to focus on is how giftedness is a need. So what are the child's needs? A gifted child might need certain kinds of material to learn from, videos, the great courses, or whatever level they're at. They may need, to do deep dives into specific areas and then a lot of help with other areas. They may have a difficult time with their social life because they don't find people who are like them, that match them. So, so we kind of focus on knowing your child, helping you teach your child to know themselves, and then, just little by little working on, okay, how can we make this work? How can we, like you said, just doing nothing for a kid like that is not going to work. They need access to materials. And sometimes if they are 2E, they don't have the executive functioning to find the materials themselves. So you're going to scaffold for that because of the 2E aspect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helpful. And then I think it also answers my question that yes, an evaluation is helpful because then it can help like exactly what's up, and it's not like a bad thing to do it. It's just another tool to help figure out what's going on.
In terms of evaluations, it's a real mixed bag out there with therapists and the medical model of disability, the pathologizing model. Parents go in to get evaluations, they spend thousands of dollars, and then the evaluators say, oh, well, you should use these coercive therapies to fix your child, which is kind of antithetical to what you want. So another thing that we do in the group is sometimes we try to help families find neurodiversity affirmative evaluators. So I'm actually on a group like that, and they're building a directory. So sometimes I'm able to give referrals for that. Like you said, another way to do it is through the school system. And you can ask around, like in your neighborhood, or to see if the quality is good. It's hard to tell. And if you subject your child to testing and the tester is coercive or ableist, it just becomes trauma for the child. So it's really tricky. And plus, if you don't have the money, it's thousands of dollars. So there's other things that people do beside just getting evaluations. They learn it by themselves. They follow, social media people to learn. There's books. There's lots of things that you could do, and we could kind of point you in that direction. To learn, like we always tag people in this gifted brain article that really kind of lists the needs of people like that. So it's helpful.
So what I hear, if I can make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, it's meeting the needs of every child. It's instead of, like, that's at the basis of what unschooling and self-directed learning is. That the self,
Yes.
the needs and the desires and the interests of the self directs and guides what we go get and provide. So
Right.
if
Yes.
whatever, and that's why I love the title of this talk, because it is unschooling for every family and for every child. Because if the child is the curriculum, they are the guide to tell us what they need. And then it's up to us to provide for that. And I know that that provision can, in and of itself, take something, depending on what each child needs. Yeah.
Yes, you have to put some effort into it. Yeah.
So I want to get to what Jasmine put in the chat. Jasmine says, supporting a kiddo with a PDA profile who was very internally driven, but shuts down very quickly. So can either you or Jasmine tell us, what does PDA profile mean? To make sure we're all on the same page.
Really, really quickly before we switch gears, can I talk about the process of diagnosis just really briefly, because we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that we're having an incredible, awesome experience with getting a diagnosis for our 12-year-old. But one of the things that came up that I think is really, really important is that, and I didn't know that this was happening because I'm kind of a rule follower. So I kind of kept to myself that I knew about, that I was recognizing how different my child's brain was. She has a twin. So we even have two kids the same age. And I felt like because I didn't have a diagnosis, I should sort of keep that to myself. But as we moved into this experience, because we saw her just feeling like she was an absolute failure, one of the things that I really wish I would have done early on, with or without a diagnosis, is talk to her very openly about her brain, how different her brain is from other people's brains. Because what she was experiencing, she believed, and I didn't know this, but she believed that everybody around her was struggling as much as she was, but managing it. And going through this diagnostic process, it's like a wash for her. She's like, oh, so not everybody has as hard of a time as I do getting out of bed in the morning. For some people, that's easier. There's something about my brain that makes that hard. And other people who, if their bedtime routine gets interrupted, they can just shift. It's not because they're better at shifting. It's because their brain is set up to be able to shift easily, and mine isn't. Giving her those things to hold on to has made a huge difference. And so I just wanted to add that piece of experience for you with your kiddo, like diagnosis or not. I think being really clear with her that her brain has this unique way of being is really important.
I'll just add to that. There's a group called Autism Late Diagnosis, and it's adults, and you'll hear exactly that same story, that when I found out that I was autistic, it made the world make sense to me. So adults even do this, are constant. I read about it almost every day. So you got that right.
Hey, Delia, I'm going to go slide into the main room for a second to support someone else. But I'm going to slide right back. So you guys keep going.
Okay.
So Jasmine, go ahead and continue with what you were going to share, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah. So PDA is
It's more intense. So it's really just like moment to moment, like what's going on with you, what's going on with your kid. And what's really important is also sometimes we focus on the negative. Like, I'm having so many problems. This is a problem. This is a problem. And then what we try to do is help the parents refocus. So when they post something like that, we go back and say, well, could you add what their interests are? Like, what do they like doing? What's their happy place? And then what happens is, you get better support, because you'll see, oh, I have a PDA, but he loves Minecraft, and then someone else will say, me too, and give you some great advice. That's just the way I've experienced it, over the years. I've never seen a way to just say, oh, just watch this general talk and you'll learn everything. Families are so unique and they have so many needs, and sometimes they just need something right now, like just to get up to the next level or over the next hump. So yeah, that's like PDA is a big one. So yeah, has anyone ever heard of the polyvagal theory? No. Okay, so this is a new, I mention it because of the PDA. It's about how your vagus nerve runs all down your body, and it kind of controls your internal systems. It's tied to interoception. So interoception is your sense of how you're feeling inside your body. Like, are you hungry, thirsty, sick, tired, meltdown, exhausted? And the vagus nerve kind of controls a lot of that. And if you're kind of in a heightened fight or flight state, then all of these systems will, like if you have constipation, it could just put you in this sense of anxiety, like you said, or hungry, and it feels like anxiety. And sometimes the autistic kids have a harder time understanding interoception. Like, when do I have to pee? When do I have to poop? When do I have to eat? Am I thirsty? And sometimes they may need some external support for those types of things. Making sure you go poop every day at the same time. There's all kinds of different supports that some people are going to need. So the polyvagal theory is kind of emerging. I'm not an expert at it, but like if you had really high anxiety, that would be like one place to look. And there are, I'm in the middle of a book right now, but there are exercises, simple exercises you can do to calm the nervous system down. And I think that's what kids do when they're sensory seeking. They're hand flapping, they're jumping, bouncing off the walls. They're trying to calm their nervous system down. And like you said, Karima, your son would touch your shirt. You know, that's a very calming thing. So, and then sometimes there's other sensory things that you would think, oh, this helps me. Like, I love to take a shower. But for a kid, they might say, I don't mind being in the shower, but getting out. I've heard this from so many autistic people. Getting out of the shower is a nightmare. Like going from wet to dry, they hate it. So just kind of understanding what life is like from their point of view is really a lot of the work that you do.
So if I could ask a question, so first two things, if you're here in this group and you're listening to this conversation and you know that you are needing support for your family, please message us in the chat. Delia is here to offer the resources that you can check out. Even if you're in the middle of, I don't know if I have a neurodivergent child, or I don't, but I'm here for a reason. State that in the chat so that we can support you. I wanted to make sure that I said that. Secondly, Delia, can you talk to us about community? I wrote down what you said at the very beginning of the room when you mentioned radical acceptance. And I wanted to know, can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what does that look like? And then how can community support that? Like, what would that look like in community?
So it's kind of a rabbit hole to go down. So the radical acceptance is kind of like this broad concept, like non-coercion. But how do you get to radical acceptance? So what we believe is that radical acceptance involves like 3 different areas: self-directed education, so you're not being coerced to learn. The second one is connection parenting. So that's where it's not a power dynamic. It's more of a collaborative approach. A lot of our members like Ross Green. I don't know if you know Ross Green at all. He does the collaborative proactive solutions for parents. He's not, unschooling per se, but he does the connection parenting part of it. So that's where you prioritize your connection over achievement. So for example, the achievement would be walking the dog. Oh, you walk the dog, that's the achievement. So when the achievement fails, oh, I can't walk the dog today. You hold the connection while you're going through that. And the way you do that is you reflect back to the person how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what their intentions are. Your intentions are to walk the dog every day, but you're not always able to do that, and that's okay. So you see the life as an opportunity to connect, not an opportunity to achieve. It's really about the person achieving what they want and not you getting them to achieve something that you want, like you got to walk the dog. And it's particularly important because for neurodivergent people, because they don't always understand why they can't do things. So that's part of the process, is understanding and accepting. I could, give you a lot of information. We have collected and curated a lot of information about neurodiversity acceptance. So that's why when people join the group, we say, take 6 months. It sounds like forever, especially when someone's chomping at the bit, like, I just pulled my kid out of school, what do I do? And we say, stay calm, just live life, pretend it's summer break, take 6 months, and read a few hours every week. And in a few weeks, you'll start to understand which direction you're going in. It's hard because it takes a leap of faith, and it is terrifying. Did that answer your question?
It does. And so you said that there was a couple of things with this rabbit hole called radical acceptance. You mentioned self-directed learning. You mentioned connection parenting. Was there another one there?
The neurodiversity acceptance
Okay.
is understanding your neurodiversity in general, and then whatever your neurodivergence is. It could be like a mental illness, or it could be a physical disability, so we include that, disabilities. Also, with disabilities, you realize that there's ableism. So that's a rabbit hole to go down. How is society oppressing disabled people?
And so can we talk about that a second? So if the standards, and I'm speaking mainly now in the context of learning in school, okay? If the expectation and the standard has been set by abled people and for abled people, and if this standard has been set by people with and forgive me, I don't know the proper terms for the neurodivergent terms, but for people who may have a more widely accepted, or what some might say, a more normal neural divergence, because I believe we all are. So, but if those standards are set,
Yes, I know. Yeah.
right? So if the
Yeah.
standards are set by those people, and it's a standard that a neurodivergent person or a disabled person, it lacks integrity for them to have to fit into that box, then should the standard, then what do we do with that? Like, do we deconstruct that and then create something more authentic? What do we do with that? Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I'll give you an example. My son is a math savant. And he's in college and he's majoring in math, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. He cannot write a paper. 1,000-word paper, I have to sit next to him and body double with him for 10 hours just to get 1,000-word paper with citations and all of that done. So the question is, why are you holding back a math savant because you're requiring them to do something that they're unable to do, like writing a paper, right? So this is college, right? So they say, well, we have standards because we want everybody to, we want anybody with the degree to know how to write a paper. So we're, the neurodiversity movement isn't really there yet. It's emerging. So we're questioning all these things. So what I can say is that even though my son is being subjected to this kind of standard that is based on able people, he knows that it's not about him. So what the unschooling gave him enough confidence and self-knowledge that when he goes into an institution that is ableist, he doesn't internalize the ableism, if that makes sense. So he can kind of say, well, I hate doing this, and I know why they want me to do it, and I know why it's not necessary for me to do it, and I'm just going to do it. And we help him out with it. And, he doesn't feel bad that he needs help with it. So that's where you get the radical acceptance coming in. Because you instead of internalizing the values of the institution, you have your own values, and you use the institution for your own ends. And if it's flawed, it's flawed. What are you going to do? But at least you're not letting it affect your self-esteem and your productivity, whatever gifts, like you said, everyone's a genius. So why are you holding back my genius because you have this arbitrary standard of writing papers? So that's an anecdote, but
So when I hear that, I think Jasmine and I may be thinking along the same thing. Delia, I don't know if I'm a disruptor. That might be a little too strong. Maybe, maybe not. But I believe in, if it doesn't work, deconstruct it, like get it to nothing, and then look at what authentically is missing that would work, and then to create that. And so what I want to create, and this is why it is so very important to me that I listen to families with neurodivergent and disabled children. I want to deconstruct and deschool the standard that was set and created by people who expected everybody to digest the same thing and perform the same way. So when we deschool that, when we deconstruct that, and we are left with nothing, I want to create something that allows the individual person and now family to create an expectation for themselves. Kind of what Stacy spoke about earlier. When the individual is able to authentically define and articulate who they want to be, what they want to do, and what they want to have, and what does success look like for them. They set that standard. They set the measurement, the measurable objectives that will look like to them that they've reached it, and create a way of living that is the standard. And so in my mind, with 5 Pillar Genius communities, I want to take care of the state's expectation, because until the country and its laws and whatnot change, until that changes, I have to play their game, right? So I have to meet their expectation for compulsory school. So I tell the state, this is where these children are. I have them. They are part of this school community. But then I come here to the community and I say, guess what? I've satisfied the state requirements. Now you get to authentically define for yourself what the standard is for you right now at this year, this month, with whoever you are. And I believe in a world one day where I won't have to do that to the state, that the state, that our larger structures and contexts will allow for that to happen. Now, that dream might be 35 years in the making. But in the meantime, that's my goal. Yeah. What difference would that make, Delia? What difference would that make if the standard were removed? What's possible then?
I mean, what I envision in an ideal situation is that you just have competencies. And we're kind of moving in that direction. Like Google is looking for certificates, not degrees. And they're also hiring people without college degrees and training them. So, like I went to Boston University and got a computer science degree, but I didn't learn to code until I got to work. And that was just expected, because you don't learn to code at school, really. A little bit, but not, I really learned it at work. So, so you want your surgeon to be competent, that's what you want. But does he have to write a creative essay about, Jane Eyre or something? I don't care about that. So.
Okay, can I jump in here? I'm just having a brainstorm.
Come on, girl. Come on.
Okay, I am a part of the high school program at a charter school in Oregon, and we're coming up against this. And I also have my kids' stuff, but we're coming up often what I'm dealing with my daughter is trying to inform the work that we're doing for education in general. And it's like right now it feels like the like a high school diploma is out of reach for many of our neurodivergent kids unless we want them to experience a level of trauma that is completely inappropriate for what human beings should have to endure. That's what I'm seeing over and over again. But I am like a person who's always said, I want to work within the system and disrupt it. It's so hard in education because it's so big. But right now, so anyway, that's my background. But right now, in this moment, I'm having this like picture of what if our students, even our high school students and our college students, just like you mentioned, this idea of competency. So when I leave high school, I have a list of skills that I can do. Maybe we can even score them. And we take away the stigma of like, if I'm scoring a 1 in writing, that doesn't mean I'm not an excellent contributor to society. And even if I'm scoring a 1 in everything, that doesn't mean I can't contribute to society. I've got these other things that I do, but then a college can look at me and say, you've got a 5 here. That's exactly what we're looking for our math program. And you're going to need support in writing. So when you write up your thesis, you're going to need support for that because you're not great at writing. And yet we want you over here doing this thinking. That's what we need, right?
I would take it even like one step further and say that the competencies aren't named by anyone but the student. So the student says like, these are my competencies, and this is what I know that I am competent in. This is what I know I'm good at. And then from there, rather than colleges saying, yeah, like we're looking for, X number of freshmen or whatever, they're like, these are the opportunities we have. What skills do you bring to them? And then exactly like you're saying, somebody who says, oh, I have these high competencies, let's talk. And then they talk and they about, oh, okay, because generally I think there are very few times in which the competencies that people are lacking like are so low that they don't grow when the interest is there. Like somebody who is a poor writer, they are a poor writer because they don't like writing about dumb stuff, right? And as soon as they right, as soon as they can show, as soon as that writing becomes a tool for self-expression and a tool for getting the information that is so important to them across, like, yeah, their first few things may not be awesome, and so they may need a proofreader, and they may need, like you say, they could request these supports, but overall like that way, I just see that there's no need to look at it as somebody having a competency of 1. Well, they just haven't, they don't need to talk about things that are a 1 for them. Let's focus on their 5s.
Exactly. And you know what? And that's exact. So when I hear this is exactly what we do with the Genius School. We have our 5 pillar invitations, right? Pillar 1 invitation is doing something that lights you up on the inside and creating good experiences so that we can see what your genius is. And so that you, as the learner, you get to say just what you said, Mary Ellen. There are many things that I do well. These are my strengths. These are my dependable strengths. I am most likely not going to contribute my greatest contribution to society from my areas of weakness. Most likely. Most likely, my greatest contribution will come from my areas of strength. And so when we invite children in the K through 12 space to discover what their genius is, what their strengths are, right? And then our pillar 5 invitation is you solve a problem for someone else based on your strengths. Then now we've connected the two together. Now you know and can articulate who you are, what you're good at, and you've been invited to use that superpower to solve a problem for someone else. In the adult world, that's all we're doing all day in our careers and jobs is providing a product or a service. We're solving a problem for someone else. And so imagine if kids can do that. Imagine if kids can do that K through 12. Imagine if neurodivergent children can do that through K through 12. And that's exactly what we do. So Jasmine, you and I need to talk because that's what we are here to do for as the Genius School. We provide community for children to learn in full self-directed learning. These are our 5-pillar invitations. A graduation in a genius community is them defending those 5 pillars, right? Tell me about your strengths. Tell me about how you serve someone else. Tell me what you know about maintaining your mental, emotional, physical, social well-being. Tell me about how you know how to take care of yourself financially. Tell me about how your travels of the world, right? So, I'm here to offer to the larger community and context the structures of school a solution, but I also am realistic enough to know that that is a big, huge ship that is going to take a very long time for it to turn, and there's a whole bunch of other strings attached to it. So while there are those, like yourself, who are in those structures, providing examples and opportunities, I'm going to say to the states, yes, these children are in compulsory schools. Yes, they're taken care of. Children, come on in here and discover your strengths and operate in your strengths. Yeah. So for the sake of time, oh my gosh, it's 2:29. What in the world? I am going to end recording here. Delia, can you please put in either tell the ladies or the parents or put in the chat how they can contact you, how they can find your breakout room, not breakout room, your Facebook group, right? So they can get more of this content. And whoever wants to linger here and have more conversation, ask more questions, you're welcome to do so. The next breakout room starts right now. Mary Ellen, that's me and you. I'm going to be in your room, recording in your room. Delia, thank you so much for who you are to the world and
Thank you.
especially to the neurodivergent and disabled community.
Thank you.